What's up, Zox fam? Now, I put out a video yesterday getting into if our expectations for Wuthering Waves was too high, and I gotta say, it was very receptive. I appreciate you guys for taking the time to not only watch the video, but you also gave me feedback that actually is the reason why this video is happening here. Now, the thing is that there was one comment in particular that really stuck out to me, and it was from Nameless, where they go to say, I wish they don't make super flashy Gen 2 PGR characters on Wuthering Waves. I still prefer a fight where bosses can stand out too. And this kind of got my gears turning. It's like, okay, wait, we've been really emphasizing a lot of the characters, but the bosses are going to be super important as well. If I actually were to look back at all the games that I've played, a lot of my most memorable moments wasn't just because of the characters, but it was also because of the bosses that I was fighting. And when we're really looking at what can really honestly give Wuthering Waves the opportunity to be its most successful self, we're going to definitely need to see some monumental moments when it comes down to our boss fights. And my question to you is, what would you prefer? Characters, bosses, or do you feel like we need a fine balance between the two? Now, I want to kind of break down a couple of different points that I feel like is really important when we're considering the type of game that we're playing, as well as what this game is going to be up against within its own genre. Now, the first thing we're going to start off with is obviously the characters. And I mean, that just has all to do with the type of game that this game is going to be. And it is a gacha game, or a game, I should say, at least consists of a gacha. Now, the thing about that though, is that when we're looking at gacha gamers, what do gacha gamers love to do? They love to pull on the gacha. And a lot of the times, I mean, with all the varying types of gachas, you have character gachas, you got weapon gachas, you got, you know, all types of them, right? But in this case, we have both, but I would argue that more than likely, people are going to be aiming for that character that they really, really like, right? And with that being the case, that means that a lot of what's going to be being emphasized for at least the company to make a good amount of money is bringing very, very rich and detailed characters, as well as characters that really have a good lore, because there are going to be those that are pulling for characters that they like, not just visually, but also have a really strong lore component behind them. And so that's why everything that we're seeing, characters that they introduce, every step that they take, even in terms of how the story unveils itself, is going to be very, very important. With all that being said, that's going to be gatewaying us into what our characters are able to do, and specifically what they're able to do against bosses. Because obviously you're going to be fighting outer world enemies, and they're going to be like ads that pop up that you just got to get rid of. But really, the pivotal points or the memorable points are going to be when you take your character to fight a boss. And the thing is that our characters are definitely up for the task here. And I feel like even from what we've seen in CBT1 and what we're going to be experiencing in CBT2 is going to stand true to that. But the thing that you don't want to happen is having characters so overloaded that they just decimate bosses and the bosses aren't fun. I think that that's one thing that we have to also consider, is that we don't want it to be so overtuned, so overpowered, that we are in a place where we really don't have a challenge either. Because I think that that's the entire point of what we're really hoping to step into, is having the opportunity to have more challenging experiences, and I would even argue to have more memorable experiences. That actually reminds me of a fight in DMC5 where you fight a boss named Urizen, who's actually sitting in his throne with his hand on his face while he watches you try your hardest to try to get past every obstacle he's throwing at you. And he's so unbothered that even once you break through the first time, you can't even land a hit on him. So it's just one of those insane things that when you kind of bring these really amazing, super fan favorite units into the game, but then you offer them some sort of obstacle that really isn't one of those things where they can just slap it and it just instantly dies or fades away like Thanos just snapped. I think that this is the element that's really going to make the game fun. And again, going back into the idea of what's going to make the game more memorable. Now that we're on the topic of bosses, I want to get into what we've seen from Wuthering Waves and what I hope to see with Wuthering Waves. Now, what Wuthering Waves has presented, and this is definitely important for those of you guys that don't know, right? When you start fighting bosses in Wuthering Waves, they obviously are going to be at much lower levels. Now, with those much lower levels, they're going to actually have a slightly lower ceiling to what their mechanics are. And the thing is that as you power up and as they get stronger, their mechanics are going to increase. They become a lot smarter. They don't attack with the same sequence. And there's obviously the damage part. They do way more damage. And I think that as we get stronger in the game, we're going to actually start stepping more into the high risk with high reward standard that a lot of these types of games tend to bring to the table. Now, with that also being said, of course, in relevance to the predecessor of Wuthering Waves, Punishing Gray Raven, when I'm at least looking at what people normally talk about, it's not just about what the characters are bringing to the table, but it's also about some of the amazing boss fights. And a lot of the times, I gotta say, from you guys in the comment section, which is always a really good reminder, there's always someone commenting like, hey, this is a extremely in-game, super well-versed and very good, amazing player playing this. The average person is going to struggle with this piece of content. And I think that that's something that's also worth noting, is that it's not easy content. So as easy as it might seem in some of the reaction videos, these are actually really good players that are honestly sweating their heads off, probably trying to not get hit by these bosses. And I think that with that being said, I gotta say that Kuro's probably the Gordon Ramsay at this point of making a really good character, but also making a boss fight suitable to allow that character to be able to either shine or to rival them. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm not really concerned with myself, but I 100% agree with the fact that we don't want to set an expectation to where they really want to start pushing out more characters that are super OP because that's what players want, but really honestly taking the time to cook up really good bosses as well. Now, of course, with that, I think it's also worth noting as far as some things that I would like to see. I would absolutely love to see a colossal boss. And what I mean by that, if you have ever played like Devil May Cry or Monster Hunter, there's always that ginormous boss that's bigger than life, the size of a mountain. You know, for example, like in DMC, they had like the fight between you and Mundus, and that was like one of the big fights of the game, right? And so that's one thing that I really would love to see with Wuthering Waves. And I know that this is the beginning, so we probably got some time to still be patient, right? But this does seem like it's already something that could be potentially in the works. I mean, considering that we have this grapple hook mechanic that is being more shown for maneuvering and getting through places and to places quicker, but there's so much that can be expanded on with that. And then we're even having the aspects of the mounts and the little cutscene they showed in the last PV of the two dragons following each other. So that was something that I was like, well, I mean, we could be having a lot of things being cooked and we're just all super excited and we're just all yapping, right? But I'm always interested to hear what you guys have to say about this matter. Would you rather see more profound characters in the game, or would you rather see some more profound bosses? Or do you think that there needs to be a healthy mix between the two? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.